Is Jenny here too?
No,
She's in Boston.
she better be in Boston because getting back out of Boston. Or that was Baltimore. Never mind.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I was over that bridge last week.
We call this meeting of the Monongalia County Board of Education to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence for Gene Williams, a former principal, who we just recently learned passed away on November 29th, 2023, and for Sherry Frazier, a retired physical education teacher who passed away on March 18th. So a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Well, Superintendent, the next order of business, the recognitions, I had the pleasure of being in Charleston for this one. I actually went to both the girls and the boys. And what a great game. Hard fought, great game. When offense isn't working, defense stepped up, and it was incredible, absolutely incredibly played game for these guys. So for the third consecutive season, I'll read my script now that I'm on that. The Morgantown High School boys basketball team are the WVSSAC Quad A state champions. And the team is coached by David Tallman. And then it says congratulations. But I'll tell you, with 45 seconds to go or something, it kind of felt like it was going off the rails from the stands. And I looked down and saw Coach Tallman, and he was just sending signals out to the guys. I would have been like, it was like your calm in that game was unbelievable. It was impeccable the way you coached these guys, kept them under with all the struggles they were going through. Excellent job. So congratulations, guys. So I'm going to have you guys come up and
Nancy's going to do the show. Dan can do this one.
yeah, Dan can do the presentation of as a retired teacher of Morgantown High School. I think that's appropriate. So if the team can come up and get a picture with Dan.
Some wonderful player.
They're all here.
They are all here. And they're really not all
They're taller than me.
Why don't you stand up here beside him?
Oh, well.
I mean, you got Jacob out there, 6'7".
Oh, my nephew's 7'2", so.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. There's Coach Tom and she's
Coach, you want to say a few words about these guys?
Absolutely.
Calmly as you did coaching?
I was going to put
That was
Sean on
impressive.
Mike.
That's all right.
We still have an
It's
opportunity.
Just
It's just
recorded.
recorded.
Just a couple things I was thinking about. One,
I just want to thank all of you for your support. We see a bunch of the games, so that means the world to us. Mr. DeSantis, thank you for hiring me. I think you made a good decision. But, it's been a good run. But the biggest thing I think that you all need to be aware of is I'm just proud of these guys because not only are they good players, but going to practice every day is just a joy because they're such great young men, and that's really important. And kudos to them and their parents and everybody. And this season wasn't easy. We had that target on our back for sure, and we dealt with a lot of teams trying to get under our skin in more ways than one. The way they conducted themselves at the state tournament was something you guys should be proud of because there were other teams that were trying to say things to them all week and get under their skin or sit in one of our opponent's student sections yelling at them, and they just really, before the game, they were in the hallway stretching, and the opposing team came out and started talking to them and things, and they just the whole time kept their composure and stayed very classy. So I'm proud about the win, but I'm also proud about the way they conducted themselves. So kudos to these guys, for sure. Thank you.
Anybody want to speak?
Well, let's, wait.
Hang on, Sharon.
Hey, wait, I was
Hang
gonna
on.
say, just
Coach,
give
hang on
it
a
a second. So, I'm gonna give Madam Walker the, honor of presenting the recognition of excellence to the 2023-24 WV Gatorade Boys Basketball Player of the Year, Sharon Young. So, you will get a chance.
God, this is easier than a press conference, Sharon. Come on now.
Ron, well, let's get a picture. How do you boys say a few words now? All right, well, get used to it.
I just want to say thank you to all y'all for everything you do for us. It was a long season. I'm gonna miss all my brothers, and best of luck to the ones that
We're trying next year.
hopefully they can do it again next year. Just want to say thank you again.
Good job. Good job, Sharon.
Okay, I don't see any administrators.
No, I don't think so. Just the coaches.
Okay, so, I saw the delegations out there, wasn't anything on it. So,
Let's cut these guys loose.
yeah, I was gonna say, why don't you guys, go enjoy your evening, and we're gonna start doing business that you guys probably don't want anything to do with.
You're welcome to stay.
You can stay if you want to, but we'll excuse you if you want to.
You're gonna go home and do your homework.
Yep.
Thank all you guys for coming, too. Appreciate you being here.
Congratulations. So exciting.
Good seeing you,
Good
Jacob.
job.
Thanks for coming. Thanks, Coach.
It's also an honor having you hand us the trophy every year.
I enjoy it. I said I never get tired of it. Yeah,
Nothing to get tired of.
that'll be my last one.
He's my shadow, he's always with me. He'll be at South next year, you believe that?
Superintendent, we're gonna move on to, student performance, student outcomes, and academics, if that's the order we're gonna stay in.
Yes, so first we'll start with the student services update, and we've got Courtney and Mike are here this evening to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in student services. So, Courtney, Mike?
Thank you for having us tonight. So Courtney and I are here to talk a little bit about student services and what's going on, and everything we're doing this year. So this is our nice little presentation.
So one of the things that we know is that when any of us are trying to do our normal jobs or our day-to-day, it's hard to function at our best capacity if we have lots of other things going on in our worlds. And for students, if they have a busy brain with thinking about things from home, or maybe they didn't get enough sleep the night before, whatever reason is impacting them, it makes it difficult for them to learn at school. And so we thought this was a nice description of that our students are going to show us before they tell us that they're distressed. And this is where the role of student services steps in to really make an impact in helping remove the barriers to help students get to that point where they can learn effectively in a classroom. So we do that as a collaborative effort. Student services is made up of a large group of people who we'll highlight here in just a moment. And just like with academic intervention, we follow a multi-tiered system of supports to make certain that all of our students receive the individual supports that they need. And those are universal supports, which cover every single student in the building, targeted supports, which are about 15% of our students, and then 5% of our students roughly sometimes need something a little bit more that we refer to as an intensive support. All of our programming is driven by the data that we collect on what our students need, and we use that to inform not only the universal programming that we're doing throughout a school or throughout the county, but also what students benefit from certain additional layers added onto their education.
So this is our student services team. We're very fortunate here in Mon County to have the positions that we have. So we have school counselors, or outreach facilitators, school psychologists, school health, or special education, or IEP specialists, or attendance supports, safe schools and alternative education, and community and mental health partners. The work that these teams do in our schools is amazing work. All of our schools have student services meetings where these people meet along with administrators. There can be teachers in those meetings too to talk about students in their buildings and the needs of those students. So Courtney talked about looking at it from a multi-tiered systems of supports. So they'll talk about what are they doing for every student in the building. What are they doing for those 15% of students, and what additional supports can they provide for them? And then they're looking at those intensive supports that those 5% of kids, and really looking at what they can do. But it's all a team approach. So it's not just one individual. It's not just the school counselor, putting things in place. The school counselors working with IEP specialists, the school health, the attendance, because it's not just a behavior. There's more to it than just that, or it's not just academics. Usually if there's a behavior, sometimes there are attendance. So they all have to be working on the same page to provide the supports for students. So these are some of the universal supports that we have in our school. So they're embedded standards and what we do every day. So the West Virginia College and Career Readiness dispositions and standards for student success. And then we also have our SEL curriculum. Pre-K through 8, we have Second Step, and 9 through 12, we have School Connect. So these things are done universally. Every student has access to these. These are done with every student in K through 8, pre-K through 8, in every school that we're in.
And these are just the embedded pieces that we already front load. These are the resources that we already provide to make certain that our schools have some sort of standard flow to the curriculum that their students are receiving. In addition to that, we know that some students, after certain breaks in the year, benefit from a reteach on behaviors or a reteach on how to do certain activities. And so that would be another example of a universal support if you are, after a break, for example, going back over expectations for how you behave in a classroom or how you turn in work, different things of that nature. In the high schools, we also do our 9th grade depression screenings, which would be another fall into this category, as well as a wealth of other programming that's going on that are based specifically on the needs of a school. Go back one slide. We put the acronym in there because we know how much you all like education jargon, and this one is my favorite acronym. It's pretty impressive, so kudos to the State Department for that one. So then we do have additional students who benefit from a little bit more. So most of our students will be okay with just the things that we're doing for all students, the preventative pieces that are built into what just good teaching is, those quality relationships that they have with their teachers, the embedded curriculum. The majority of our students are able to sustain with maybe a little hiccup here or there if there's something going on at home with just our universal supports. We do have students, though, who need, as I said, more. And some students benefit from a smaller group of where we might do some group counseling, we might do some group interventions, a student might receive some sort of a check-in, check-out, or some sort of mentoring program to help them get connected with the school or to improve a little bit further. Again, we do have some students who have some pretty severe needs. And for those students, typically those are students that we refer to outside agencies. We work with our community partners to connect those kids with additional resources because sometimes it's more than what we're able to do in an educational setting.
So I've always talked about Panorama every other time I've been here, and just the data from Panorama and the surveys that we do. And that all goes into student services, the MTSS, and what we do. So the MTSS supports the whole child, and Panorama adds data, and so it's a one-stop shop for all the information that's needed. So we have the academic view, the attendance, the behavior, and the life skills that we do from the surveys. And what Student Services does is they look at this data that we have, and what Panorama does is it actually breaks it down into those tiers for them. So you can see, based off of survey results, where students fall within each tier. For academics, for behavior, for attendance, where those students are falling. So we have that data there. So schools are, when Courtney talked about small group counseling, they're looking at the data that's provided on how students responded to surveys in certain areas, whether it's emotion regulation or grit. And then schools are looking at students that have flagged in those areas and maybe offering group counseling or services in those areas to help students in those needs. And this is kind of like a snapshot of a student's profile. This is my daughter's profile, so it's okay, I just blacked out her name. But this is kind of what the snapshot is that you see, but it's all in one place. And we have, like, for academics, we have our iReady data, but it's all pulled into Panorama. So we're not having to look at 4 different tabs across a computer screen. It's all there in one nice platform that we can see everything. And it keeps historical data for us too. So it's not just, what students did on this survey, but it's, over time, so you can see trends with how students are doing for, any area that you want to look at. So we are starting our end of the year surveys once we come back from break. So we do beginning and end of the year, and then we'll have data on that. But, our schools from the first round of surveys looked at that data and put in interventions and plans in place to address needs within their schools based off the data that they had. So hopefully we'll see some nice changes and nice results from that.
So just looking ahead, what's to come here, we're always looking to improve and add more value to what we do for students and to the community. So one of our biggest goals is for this summer with our Behavior Blueprint Summer Series. This is a conference that was dreamed up by several folks in the CNI team, and the need for it has really been supported through our conversations with teachers in the curriculum audits. So we'll be focusing on various strategies that will assist teachers in the classroom, also talking about some community impacts that may prevent a student from being able to fully engage with classroom instruction. So we're looking forward to that in June. We did fold in some additional professional development during our most recent essential that was based on, again, feedback from our curriculum audit about some more information related to trauma-informed care. That was a request from one of the elementary schools. And so we tailored one of our essentials to be more focused on that as opposed to where we had gone in the past. And we're looking to do some more of that in the future because we know our teachers want to be able to be helpful in a lot of situations where they feel at a loss if a student is really struggling. We're also looking into some ways that we can support families, some additional ways that we can provide resources to families. We recently were contacted by an organization that has some modules that are pre-created to help inform various community members or families about how to support children through difficult times that they might experience in childhood or adolescence. And we felt that might be a good thing to add, something else that we could provide as a resource without costing us any money. And then we're looking to further collaborate or to extend our community partnerships and broaden our collaboration with the resources that we have here in Monongalia County. So, each of us individually is such a great department, but together we're so much more effective, and we just want to continue to thank you all for the support for Student Services. We also cannot go without recognizing the support of the community because the majority of our positions are funded through the excess levy, and so that is such a huge reason why Monongalia County has the number of personnel that we have in Student Services and why we're able to do as many things as we're able to do. So, thank you. We have some appendices if you have questions about certain things. We don't need, Yes, ma'am.
So, of course, I have questions. So, the legislature talks so much about students that had no self-regulation and were disruptive in the classroom. So we realize that they're not all going to, it may develop over in the year. So what happens, what should a teacher do or if all of a sudden they have a student that is very disruptive just because they're going through some trauma or something? So what would the teacher do then?
So to start, like, there's a lot of things we can do at the school level to kind of look at that child in the bigger picture of what's actually going on. You know, supports we can provide as a school. You know, we have a lot of come to the table, bring everyone to the table. You know, through a meeting. You know, depending on what type of accommodations, if they have a 5 or 4 IEP, if they're in the SAP process, start those conversations and really look at this child. What can we do as a school system? What have we already tried? And then what can we try to do? And sometimes, like you said, like sometimes they come out of nowhere and they are big behaviors or big things that things that are going on. But you know, I think through if they're so big and we need to really look at the setting that they're in, you know, we can have those conversations about you know, what's the best placement for this child in that moment, but while also providing supports and getting them services from the outside community and getting them, you know, situationally set up in the school for, you know, once we can kind of stabilize some of the things that are going on. But really it's coming to the table and looking at, you know, what are we doing, what have we done, and then what can we put in place to move forward to support this kid.
And like you said, Nancy, sometimes, I mean, our teachers are the first line of defense, and they know as soon as something is off with a student. And so as soon as they make that recognition, typically our teachers are trying to intervene, and sometimes it's not enough, and so they reach out to any one of the people that are on that student services list. They can contact their administrators, certainly would be a component of that, the counselors, the outreach, the nurses, to try to get something started. Oftentimes our students end up in a SAT meeting where we can kind of pull things together, but that's not always required either. It can be a parent conference or something like that to really just make sure we're putting all the pieces together to support that child.
And we do have a pre-K to 5 alternative education program.
That's correct.
So how many students are in that? And or does that fluctuate?
To be honest, I'm not certain how many students we have in the pre-K program.
I'll get a number and send it out to you guys.
But it would fluctuate. Our goal is never to keep students in alternative education forever. And so we would monitor those after every 45 days to see if a student could transition back to the classroom.
Back to their home school.
Mhm.
So in these alternative settings, what are provided? Is it just more one-on-one? Is it more support services? What exactly is happening there? And I think part of why probably a lot of people in the community, with so much discussion in the legislature, want to have an idea that there are all this going on here in our county for our students. So I guess it's kind of just want to reassure people.
So you're right. In Mon County, the model that we have is not standard across the state. We are very fortunate that we have a program that was started through a grant that we've been able to sustain and continue for many years because we knew how effective and valuable it was to our schools. So what that looks like at the elementary and early childhood age is a little bit of a smaller environment. You have some teachers who have more specific trainings and behaviors. We also have some partnerships with WVU and outside resources who are coming in to support and offer additional guidance and interventions to help the child and the family. So there's some kind of collaboration between the school, the agencies, and the family that happens over there in the site. Education is happening. It's the same curriculum that would be taught at in the home school, but it's just done in a much smaller setting.
So do most of the students, are they able to transition from that environment? Or is it a real struggle to transition from that environment?
I think it's a student by student situation. I don't think we can sugarcoat that there are some students whose needs are just very high. and that fluctuates for the student even in the time that they're in our alternative settings. And so that's why that location is so valuable, because they really know the students and their families and are able to help in ways that maybe wouldn't be as easy to do when you're at the homeschool and you have more students in a classroom. But there are lots of students who do transition back. It's just, so I would say the majority of them are able to, but there are some that truly need that additional support to be successful.
So when we get to our older students, I think when I was growing up, there was just a thought, oh, that person's ornery, it's a stage they're going through, all of that stuff. So is that thought process changed in our schools now that we're doing all of these assessments, even at the older ages? Or are we just kind of thinking, are we seeing as much of that thought process that, oh, this is just a stage?
I think they look at every single student individually. And our process for alternative ed across the board is the same, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. There's a team meeting, it's a team decision on if alternative ed is the appropriate placement for that student. And so there are lots of things that come into play, and certainly the student and the family are a big component of making that decision on where the student's education is going to take place. But a lot of our students have found a lot of great benefit in attending alternative education. And so is it the right solution for every student? No. Is it a great solution for a lot of students? Absolutely. And so it's looking at the needs of that individual student and making those right decisions.
I can say too, but even with the data that we have, like or the student surveys, like you can see trends. So the students that we're meeting on like emotion regulation, if they're have the incidents that they're struggling with, maybe some impulsivity of just saying things in the classroom. Usually 95% of the time, if we look back at the historical data of the surveys that we had when we started, the student is rating that they're struggling in those areas. So like, it's not necessarily a phase, but something that they've struggled with. As we're trying to like meet the needs of all the students that maybe we've tried some interventions and weren't successful, but the student is pretty honest with themselves that, hey, like my emotion regulation and I'm not able to remain calm in certain situations, I'm struggling with this. We're seeing the data that supports that, that kind of helps us know that it's not just a phase necessarily, it's something that they may be struggling with.
Thank you.
What's the data on students in high school that get placed in alternative education coming back to their home school? Are we being successful in that? First of all, is that our number one goal? I would assume it is, to get the kids back in their home school. But how many kids? How many kids do we have out there, and how many of them are on track to get back to their home school? And are we just putting them at the alternative education and leaving them there, I guess?
So I'll be honest with you, we've not looked at the data for alternative education, but that's certainly an update that we can get to you about what that trend data looks like. We do have a lot of students who do transition back into the home high schools. For some students, they transition back through kind of a staggered role to really make sure that we're bringing them into a situation where they're going to be successful. That's our goal, is to help kids be successful in school. And so we don't want to put a student in a situation where they're going to have an issue. So whether that's additional supports kind of being tag teamed from the Excel Center to the high school, or just always kind of keeping that collaboration between the home high school and the Excel Center is really critical in making certain our students remain successful. But to your point, I don't have the data on that.
I'd like to see that. I'd just like to see how we're doing on maybe turning kids around. Board members, any other questions?
Thank you for all you do.
It's tough. We used to have alternative education when I first started, and it was just for students who didn't like high school. It had nothing to do with behavior. And they could, at that time, the state had, I don't want to say provisional diploma. I can't remember what they called it. But you could go there and kind of be more of a free spirit. They had to provide their own transportation, so they all didn't get there at normal start time. And they picked their own areas of interest. I remember they used to have a dinner every year at the end of the year, and you'd go and you'd see all their projects, and they had photography, and there was a boy who made sculptures out of metal, and another student had done all this rock climbing, and it was really just very different. And but most of those students that I've seen out and about, they were very successful as their lives continued. So it was just a different way to look at things, which unfortunately we can't. I think we tried, or that's part of why we want the Renaissance Academy, to have a place where someone is more free to try different things and try and see what their passion is. But it was, so whenever someone says alternative education, I do not always think of a behavior problem or an academic problem that they just couldn't function, or it's really an opportunity to change everything you do if it's done well. So I'm hoping that people can continue to go in and transition out.
Okay, board members? Okay, super. Moving on.
Thank you.
Courtney,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
guys.
guys. Thank you.
And they didn't want to stay either.
I can't believe we're not more excited.
Right, Mr. President, we do have a personnel hearing this evening. I'd like to move in to that hearing, so if our legal counsel, Jennifer Carradine, would get us set up to do that, we'll go ahead and begin.